Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning, our theme is determination. And the verse which has been chosen is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 8. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home, text 72. Tri Ratrante, Tri Ratrante, Kapita Badarasana, Atma Vritti Anusarena Masam Ninye Archayan Harim Trirante Trirante. Okay. Kapita Badarashana Atma Vrityanusarena Masam Ninyer Chayan Harim Tri 3 Ratra Ante, at the end of night. Tri 3 Ratra Ante, at the end of night. Kapita Badara, fruits and berries. Ashana, eating. Atmavritti, just to preserve the body. Anusarena, as it was necessary. Minimum. Masam, 1 month. Ninye, passed away. Archayan, worshipping. Harim, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every 3rd day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way he progressed in his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kapita is a flower which is known in Indian vernacular as kayeta. We do not find an English equivalent for the name of this flower, but its fruit is generally not accepted by human beings. It is eaten by monkeys in the forest. Dhruva Maharaj, however, accepted such fruits, not for luxurious feasting, but just to keep his body and soul together. The body needs food, but a devotee should not accept foodstuff to satisfy the tongue in sense gratification. It is recommended in Bhagavad Gita that one should accept as much food as necessary to keep the body fit, but one should not eat for luxury. Dhruva Maharaj is an acharya, and by undergoing severe austerities and penances, he teaches us how one should execute devotional service. We must carefully know the process of Dhruva Maharaj's service. How severely he passed his days will be shown in later verses. We should always remember that to become a bona fide devotee of the Lord is not an easy task. But in this age, by the mercy of Lord Caitanya, it has been made very easy. But if we do not follow even the liberal instructions of Lord Caitanya, how can we expect to discharge our regular duties in devotional service? It is not possible in this age to follow Dhruva Maharaj in his austerity. but the principles must be followed. We should not disregard the regulative principles given by our spiritual master, for they make it easier for the conditioned soul. As far as our ISKCON movement is concerned, we simply ask that one should observe the 4 prohibitive rules, chant 16 rounds, and instead of indulging in luxurious eating for the tongue, simply accept prasad offered to the Lord. This does not mean that with our fasting, the Lord should also fast. The Lord should be given foodstuff which is as nice as possible. But we should not make it a point to satisfy our tongues. As far as possible, we should accept simple foodstuff just to keep the body and soul together to execute devotional service. It is our duty to remember always that in comparison to Dhruva Maharaj, we are insignificant. We cannot do anything like what Dhruva Maharaj did for self-realization, because we are absolutely incompetent to execute such service. But by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we've been given all concessions possible for this age. So at least we should always remember that neglect of our prescribed duties in devotional service will not make us successful in the mission we have undertaken. It is our duty to follow in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj, for he was very determined. We should also be determined to finish our duties in executing devotional service in this life. We should not wait for another life to finish our job. Tri Ratrante, Kapita Badarashana, Atmavrityanusarena Masam Ninyar Chayan Harim. For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every 3rd day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way he progressed in his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So our theme is determination, and Dhruva Maharaj is really an outstanding example of determination in Krishna consciousness. Here, this is just the beginning of the description of the austerities that he undertook. He's just beginning here, just getting a little warmed up for his austerity. It sounds austere. For the first month he ate only fruits and berries on every 3rd day, but actually that's nothing really compared to what came, a little later. His austerities, what to speak of reducing his eating drastically, but he even did things like he reduced his breathing drastically. And it's, even this, of course, this is really quite something. But his austerity, as he increased his austerity step by step, it became so powerful that it threw the whole universe into a state of disturbance. Everything was sort of upside down in the universe, and just on the basis of his austerity, or in this context, his determination to achieve his goal, not just some nondescript determination or just some general determination in life, but his specific determination that he wanted to have the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to get his mercy. Of course, he had in his mind the idea that I would like to get the mercy of the Supreme Lord in order to get a great kingdom, but by the very astute preaching of Narada Muni, who directed his whole program, basically. So his idea of just doing austerity to get a great kingdom by the very intelligent preaching of Narada Muni, his determination was diverted, you could say, to the lotus feet of the Lord in a much more specific and much more devotional way, rather than just give me this, give me that, something material. Narada Muni instructed him to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, offering his respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And despite the fact that Dhruva thought that his whole program was simply one of getting a special benediction from the Lord to get his massive kingdom even bigger than his grandfather's, what to speak of his father's, he wanted to teach his father a lesson, as we all know, such a famous section of Srimad Bhagavatam. But what to speak of achieving that, which on the conscious level was what he was thinking he was doing, but he actually, unknown to himself, he was becoming a devotee through engaging in a Krishna conscious activity, even unknowingly, particularly the chanting of the mantra. But anyway, the particular point in this context is such determination. It's just amazing. Even what's described here is amazing. But what to speak of what comes and what's described in the next few verses, what he gets into in the following months, it's completely incredible, actually, and truly superhuman. So this particular verse, and in some places in the purport, the subject of eating as such is being focused on and emphasized. He was only eating fruits and berries every third day, and kapita badara, fruits and berries. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that they weren't even very nice fruits and berries. There are many fruits and berries which are very nice and tasty and so on like that. But these particular ones, kapita, they are some type of indigenous fruit here in India, which is really not very nice. And if one were to eat it, one would expect at least it would really be only just to keep body and soul together, and not for the sake of some type of pleasure, eating enjoyment, gourmet prasad experience, or something of that sort. And of course, in one sense, that is the problem, or a problem in ISKCON, is that there's so much nice prasadam. It's sometimes a bit overwhelming. And rather than having difficulty with shortage of foodstuff, rather the opposite is the problem. So, but anyway, still Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing here, also in the purport, that in the context of Krishna consciousness, as we practice it, as he taught it in his International Society for Krishna Consciousness, even though there is not extreme austerity as encouraged, or as performed at least, by Dhruva Maharaj, but still there are some foundational austerities which are there in life within this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. As we all know, when people are initiated within ISKCON, the very first thing they do generally during the course of the initiation ceremony, the first thing they do is vow to follow the four regulative principles, and then vow to chant 16 rounds a day minimum. At least this is to be the pattern we follow in initiations. First of all, the four regulative principles. And chanting of Hare Krishna, of course, is more important, but anyway, these things are here, and we have to maintain these standards at least, and really try to maintain them nicely. In other words, follow the four regulative principles in such a way that we are comfortable following those regulative principles and not regularly being bothered and having to contend with desires for these undesirable things popping up into our minds and ourselves possibly becoming distracted, at least on the mental level, and what to speak of on the physical level. So really, this is wanted, this is required, this is very important in terms of determination in Krishna consciousness as taught by Srila Prabhupada, to maintain these four regulative principles and absorb ourselves deeply enough in Krishna consciousness, and in that way become free enough from these four activities so that it's not like an ongoing problem that our mind is being troubled by these ideas. And then to chant 16 rounds a day, Srila Prabhupada often would say not just 16 rounds a day, but oftentimes Srila Prabhupada would encourage 16 rounds without offenses. If we ask here who is chanting 16 rounds a day, I imagine everybody will put their hand up. If we ask who is chanting 16 rounds a day without offenses, probably not everyone will put their hand up, or maybe nobody. Hare Krishna. But yes, if the regulative principle of avoiding these four sinful activities, if the regulative principle was not simply that you don't do these things, but it was actually that you, not only do you not do, but you don't even think of these things, and that if you ever, even once, thought of doing one of these things, you would have then broken the regulative principle. Anyway, if that was the standard for initiation, probably not many devotees would become initiated. So determination. Determination is a very important factor in Krishna consciousness. Dhruva Maharaj is such an amazing example of that. And as Prabhupada makes clear in the purport, we should not think that I could do that or try to actually do like Dhruva Maharaj, because it'll simply be it'll become a disturbance. It'll become a disturbance, as Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter, that a devotee should be moderate, temperate, like that, in his or her habits of eating, sleeping, working, recreation. Moderate, not too extreme. If one tries to become too extreme, we've even, perhaps some of us have had experience or seen people trying to become too extreme, like sleep, reduce their sleeping drastically. Of course, we are not these bodies. It is a fact. And the spirit soul does not need to sleep. We are eternal spirit souls. So it does happen. We have had experience, at least I've had or seen devotees back in the good old days, so to speak, of ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada's time, seen devotees try to reduce their sleeping to 2 hours a night. Because after all, Prabhu, you are not this body. But then we've observed that such devotees, as soon as they sit down to chant their rounds during the morning program, they're immediately asleep. And Srimad Bhagavatam's class becomes a time for taking unofficial rest, and it just becomes a disturbance. We had one devotee, when I first joined in the beginning of 1973, he was really trying to do like that. And we would go out distributing books in London every day, Monday to Saturday. We would go out on the metro, the underground railway, and go out to some place in the suburbs. And this devotee would sit down. As soon as he'd sit down, he'd be asleep. And he would only wake up when they woke him up, when the train reached the end of the line. And of course, he had already passed the place where he was meant to get out and distribute books. And then he would get on the train going back the other way, and the same thing would happen. So a degree of austerity has to be there. It has to be there for progress in Krishna consciousness. And that degree of austerity basically is that which has been given very clearly by Srila Prabhupada. And if devotees try to go beyond that and increase the level of austerity artificially or in some speculative way, in many cases it creates disturbance for them and sometimes for others also. Like someone gets up at 1 o'clock in the morning and loudly chants their rounds immediately outside the brahmachari room where the devotees are taking rest. We have also seen that. And it creates a disturbance, and the brahmacharis come and shout at him. So, but determination's extremely important. Srila Prabhupada, in his purports, in his classes, Srila Prabhupada mentions a number of important examples of determination. Determination in, one example Prabhupada mentions, interesting example, is Mahatma Gandhi, who was not really a devotee. Certainly he wasn't a devotee in the real sense of being a proper practicing Vaishnav, he was a sort of a Hindu gentleman who had some appreciation for Bhagavad Gita and Lord Ram and so on and so forth, as many Hindu people do. But when it comes to actually being a proper Vaishnav, he was quite a long way from that standard. But Srila Prabhupada, I've read in a 2 or 3 or a few places in Prabhupada's classes, conversations, Prabhupada talks about how Gandhi, at the age of 36, he had already been a householder for some years. He already had some children. His wife was there. She was a faithful wife, apparently. But Gandhi, somehow he got this idea that I need to become very strong and internally strong and become celibate, despite already being a householder for some fair number of years, etc. But still, I need to become celibate in order to become internally strong enough to be able to have the influence that I'll be able to push the British out of India. And so therefore, at the age of 36, Prabhupada is describing in just these terms, he became celibate. And the way Srila Prabhupada describes it is that on the basis of that celibacy, which of course just in and of itself demands determination, but then on the basis of that austerity and that determination and celibacy, he developed the determination to do his whole non-violence movement. And, maybe Subhas Chandra Bose, who had other ideas, also played a big part. But still, Gandhi influenced many people because he had some Shakti on the basis of that determination. Srila Prabhupada, even though Srila Prabhupada elsewhere talks about Gandhi in not very appreciative terms, like how he said, well, let the Muslims kill cows, it's their religion, don't worry about it too much. On a few occasions, Prabhupada talked about that too. And he really didn't appreciate Gandhi for that, and some other things, just like very Hindu-y and spiritually insubstantial ideas he had, and which he propagated, and even non-violence itself. But this particular point, his determination, his celibacy, Prabhupada talks about that the British, through his potency, at least to some degree through his potency, the British lost India. And then when they lost India, it was kind of the beginning of the end of the British Empire. They lost other places in Asia, then they lost Egypt, they lost the Suez Canal, and look now, if you keep up with the news a little, you'll see, looks like they're going to lose Scotland sooner or later. And it's like that. Yeah. Another example Srila Prabhupada gives, it's in the purport in Bhagavad Gita of, let's see, what is it? Is it 624? Yeah, it's 624. Sanischayena yoktavyo yoga nirvana chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamams tyaktva sarvana sheshata manasai vendriya gramam viniyamya samantata. One should engage himself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. So in the purport of that verse, Srila Prabhupada gives quite a well-known example, another example of determination, the example of the sparrow. One sparrow was living right next to the ocean, and she laid her eggs right on the edge of the ocean, and the ocean came and took those eggs and sort of swept them away. And then the sparrow appealed to the ocean, first of all, just in a sort of gentle way, please give my eggs back. The ocean was just not interested. Kind of, nasty attitude. And then the sparrow said, listen, if you don't give me my eggs back, I'm going to drink you up. And that'll be it. You'll be in big trouble. But the ocean just laughed, of course. What could a little sparrow do in terms of drinking up the massive ocean? But the sparrow was determined. And so the sparrow started. Little, beakfuls trying to drink up the whole ocean. What an impossible task. But Garuda, seeing the determination of his sister, little sister, Garuda came, and Garuda is an extremely powerful personality and even a type of expansion of the Supreme Lord. And if he wants to drink up the ocean or many oceans, he can do it just like that. So he came and told the ocean, and then the ocean saw, yes, okay, I am actually going to be in big trouble here. So he gave back the eggs. Prabhupada gives that example in that purport, Bhagavad Gita chapter 6 verse 24. Determination, as Krishna is saying in the verse, one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith. There's a few elements. Determination is a very important element. There are other elements also in the picture. It's not just, at least in Krishna consciousness, it's not just a matter of just blind determination, just sort of, as they say, just go for it and close your eyes and just, there's more to the picture, as Prabhupada mentions, or the verse is saying, engage yourself in the practice of yoga in devotional service with determination and faith. And faith. His Holiness Sridhar Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada's disciple who unfortunately left us physically a few years ago, he gave an interesting example. Maybe some of you have heard of it. How just blind determination in and of itself alone, at least in the context of Krishna consciousness, is not exactly what we really want. There's more to it than just blind determination alone. So he gave the example, a little story of The American Navy, some big part of the American Navy, the 7th Fleet, or whatever it is, some whole big group of ships, huge battleships, cruising across the ocean, en route to harassing some country. Anyway, that's another thing. But they're just going along through the sea, and at the front is the big, big ship with the big admiral on it, who's in charge of the whole fleet. Then on the radar, coming up somewhere in the distance in front, on the radar they see a bleep, a blip, some little flash. There's something there in the middle of the ocean. So, it's a ship. It's another ship. So the admiral radios the other ship. Hey, you, move. Get out of the way. And the message comes back. You move. You change direction. And you go around me. And the admiral doesn't appreciate this, of course, and sends back a message that we are the American 7th Fleet. You change direction. You move and get out of the way. And the message comes back just negative. You move out of the way. And then the admiral sends back a message. I am Admiral such and such. And you get out of the way. And the message comes back. I am a lighthouse. You change direction and move out of the way. You get the idea. So there's a little more to it than just sort of blunt determination. And there's a nice example there in Prabhupada's books. Very nice example is there in Nectar of Instruction, I think verse 3, Utsahan nischaya dardiyat tatat karma pravartanat sango tyagat satovrate shadbir bhakti prasidyati. 6 particular activities are very favorable and helpful for progress in Krishna consciousness, in devotional service. And first of all, the first 3, they're kind of linked together, they're connected, related. Utsahan nischayad daryat. Utsahan is enthusiasm. Nishchayad is more like, Prabhupada translates there as patience, although Nishchayad elsewhere, Prabhupada translates as determination. And, if you think about it, you'll see patience, determination, that patient perseverance despite obstacles, challenges, and so on. Patience, determination, they're kind of, synonyms to some degree, at least in important respects. And then daryat means confidence. So this is coming from Srila Rupa Goswami. These are 3 very important elements in the picture of how a devotee is to be able to make progress in Krishna consciousness. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that without enthusiasm, you cannot really do anything. What to speak of in Krishna consciousness, just in life. If you're not enthusiastic, if you're just, particularly if you're really unenthusiastic, if you're depressive and like defeatist, very sort of fatalistic about things, then you're not going to be able to do anything. Some people, they become, they lose their enthusiasm to such a degree, they become depressive. They even, if someone knocks on the door, they may become frightened of opening the door. This is like loss of enthusiasm in a super extreme. And, if you're not enthusiastic, you can't do anything materially or spiritually. And in Krishna consciousness also, enthusiasm just has to be there. But Srila Prabhupada made the point that enthusiasm without patience or determination in this context, enthusiasm without patience, without that perseverant mood of determination despite obstacles, etc., enthusiasm without patience, Prabhupada said, leads to the mode of passion. And mode of passion leads to frustration. We're just working and working like mad. But then it's the material world. There will be obstacles and challenges and problems. And sometimes you will not be able to do something. You'll have to try a different approach, something like that. But if you're just going like mad, full of that type of blind enthusiasm, then sooner or later you're going to become frustrated. And when you become frustrated, well, it's very detrimental in many ways. But then Srila Prabhupada also made the point that patience without enthusiasm, patience at least in the more sort of restrained conception of patience, patience without enthusiasm may just lead to the mode of passion, that you become so patient that you think, let me take rest, and maybe when I wake up, then, I'll be able to make some progress. So both these things have to be there, enthusiasm, patience or determination, and confidence. Not, of course, that material self-confidence that, yes, I'm very good and I'm very qualified and I can just do it. Not that type of material type of self-confidence, but the confidence that Krishna is there. Krishna is there. And if I try my best, enthusiastically, with determination, with patience, and with faith in the Lord, then by His grace, whatever result will come will be for my betterment and will be the most suitable, really. Yes. And success as such may certainly be there by His grace. And even maybe sometimes Krishna will want to teach me a lesson so I won't be as successful as I was hoping to be. But then I have to take it that it's Krishna's mercy to learn some lesson perhaps. So like this, in Krishna consciousness, that sense of determination has to be a little tempered by these other considerations in Krishna consciousness, enthusiasm and being tolerant, patient in the sense of tolerant, but also just having faith in the Lord. That whatever result comes, if I try my actual best, whatever result comes will be His mercy. I should take it like that. And in this way, I'll progress in devotional service. It's also interesting. I was, naturally doing a little research yesterday into the subject of determination. Krishna is also very determined. Yes. It is one of the 64 qualities of Krishna in Nectar of Devotion. It's not just, that for Krishna everything's automatic and he doesn't need determination, but the devotees need determination. Krishna's also determined, and there are nice descriptions there in Nectar of Devotion. One nice description which I'm particularly fond of, it's actually brought up, it's there in Nectar of Devotion. It's brought up, though, in the context of Krishna being truthful and upholding what he says he's going to do, which, in a sense can be seen from the perspective of determination also. But anyway, in the context of truthfulness, nice example given there in Nectar of Devotion is that following the battle of Kurukshetra, Queen Kunti approaches Lord Krishna and thanks him that, my Lord, before the battle, I asked you that you please protect my sons, the 5 Pandavas. You please protect them so they are not killed in the battle. And sure enough, and Krishna agreed, yes, I'll do that. I'll protect them. And sure enough, he did. And they survived the battle, practically unscathed physically. And whereas, the vast majority, maybe 99% or whatever, some huge percentage of the warriors who fought, they died. But the Pandavas didn't die by Krishna's mercy. So then, there we have Queen Kunti thanking Krishna that you upheld your word, your promise. So you're truthful, or, we could say you're determined in that sense. And Queen Kunti says that one day the sun, one day the sunshine may become cold, and one day snow may become hot. But I know your word will never change. This is one very nice quality of Krishna. Then in regards to determination as such, in Nectar of Devotion, the example given, or one example, is that, let's see, yes. So there, in the explanation of determination in Nectar of Devotion, the examples given of when Satyabhama, one of Krishna's main queens, she decided she wanted a parijata flower or tree. She wanted the tree. Okay, yeah, I think she wanted the tree, actually, which was there in Indraloka, and like a prized possession of Lord Indra. But Satyabhama, she was such a lady. She decided she wanted that tree. And so Krishna said, as a like cooperative, obedient, or whatever husband, he said, yes, I'll get it for you. He went to Indraloka, requested Indra. Indra refused. There was great battle. And even Indra called other demigods, and it was really a major battle. It wasn't just Indra versus Lord Krishna. And yeah, so Krishna got the Parijata and brought it back, and there in Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada says, so, in regard to that occurrence, Krishna told Narada Muni, my dear great sage of the demigods, now you can declare it to the devotees in general and to the non-devotees in particular, that in this matter of taking the Parijata flower, all the demigods, the Gandharvas, the Nagas, the demon Rakshasas, the Yakshas, the Panagas, they all tried to defeat me, but none could make me break my promise to my queen. This is Krishna, just expressing his own feelings about his own determination. So Krishna's also determined. And Prabhupada gives other examples there of Krishna's determination. He gives the example of Krishna promising that Arjuna, or telling Arjuna, you declare it boldly, my devotee will never perish by the grace of Krishna. Of Krishna protecting the bridge basis in the Govardhan Leela, lifting Govardhan Hill. And let's see. Yeah, those are the examples. Really? Okay. Okay, so there's another one. Satrajit. Krishna getting the Shamantaka jewel. So Krishna's determined also. So determination is very important quality in devotional service and in our humble ways. As Prabhupada, makes it clear here, we cannot do anything like what Dhruva Maharaj did for self-realization because, devotees, we are absolutely incompetent to execute such service. So in our humble little ways, we should try to be determined in our devotional service. And just last point, Prabhupada also mentions in a few places determination. One's determination can become stronger. One can develop one's determination more and more, Prabhupada says, by following the regulative principles. Prabhupada says this in a few places. If you follow the regulative principles nicely in Krishna consciousness, your determination in general, in your life, in your whole life in Krishna consciousness, your determination will strengthen and develop. Of course, it takes determination also to follow the regulative principles nicely. So, these things are interlinked. But Srila Prabhupada also makes that point. Hare Krishna. Any comment or question? Bhakti Vaibhava Maharaj, Prahladnanda Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj. Comment, correction. Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. Oh. Okay, that's a good one. Thank you. Maharaj is mentioning, thinking about Srila Prabhupada's determination. That's very amazing also. Thank you. Pancharatna Prabhu?
The purport begins with talking about eating. And Srila Prabhupada seems to stress a approach to eating that we don't generally seem to be very determined to follow. And in fact, we seem to avoid that style of eating only very, very simply and just to keep the body and soul together. And in fact, it appears that Srila Prabhupada, although he says like this in the purport, he doesn't, if we look at the way he fed us, it was very different. So perhaps you could help us understand this.
Well, even Srila
aspect.
Prabhupada himself, I mean, he didn't eat extravagantly, but, arguably it may have been more than just simply to keep body and soul together, because that's pretty basic, really. But at least I was told, maybe it's one of those famous Prabhupada saids, but at least I was told that Prabhupada said that it is our one vice. Prasadam. Nice prasadam. But still, anyway, having said that, Srila Prabhupada definitely spoke about that Monday to Saturday we should eat, like basically relatively simple prasadam, sabji, chapati, rice, dal. This was the basic formula for, nutritious and relatively simple, but still nice prasadam. And then Sundays could be a feast. Prabhupada gave that type of approach or formula. But, definitely it's a fact that if we actually eat luxuriously, really, that it will be bad for our health. It may be bad for it may disturb other senses. It's possible. And it's just not how a devotee is meant to live. So I would say, ultimately, we have the responsibility to try to see that we eat like a moderate type of diet, as Krishna says, one who is moderate or temperate, something like that, in his habits of eating, sleeping, and so on, can successfully practice yoga and progress spiritually. Hare Krishna. Okay, I think we have to end here. Srila Prabhupada ki.